All right, there's no one better to me this week to have on in a week like this in Nebraska softball, Nebraska athletics. It's pretty wild. Then the man who's been the longtime voice of Nebraska softball, he has also seen it all in Nebraska athletics over 2 decades as the voice. He'll be calling it on the radio this weekend for this one of the biggest Big Ten series of all time, really. If you really look at the what's at stake here, UCLA and Nebraska. I speak of our good friend Nate Rohr with us here on In the Circle at D1 Softball, powered by 643. So anything going on with Nebraska this week?
It's funny. I just got off the phone with Troy Dannon, the athletic director at Nebraska, and we're having him on our radio show. I'm the sports director for KLIN here in Lincoln, and we're having him on our show tonight. And he's probably, well, maybe not probably, but there's a decent chance he misses the spring game because he'll be down in Houston. And if Nebraska wins the game on Thursday against Iowa, he'll be down there for that. And just the concept of an athletic director missing the spring football game at the University of Nebraska. So you've got the men's hoops run, you've got spring football, you've got baseball, which has won 14 out of 15, and now, of course, softball, which has a long winning streak, and they've won 20 out of 21 and ninth in the country. And this is arguably the biggest series in Nebraska softball history. I mean, there are a few from the Big 12 era that stack up, but Nebraska and its opponent, the quality there, it's a pretty short list of games that rank with this, or series that rank with this one in terms of magnitude. And this is a Nebraska program that's had plenty of good history. So really exciting times here in Lincoln.
Yeah, it's amazing. For those that don't know, obviously, Nebraska men's basketball in the Sweet 16, Fred Hoiberg, that's been a big story in college basketball on Thursday in Houston. A lot of Nebraska people there. The spring football game, which is usually is a big deal there. You mentioned, is baseball home or away this weekend?
Baseball is at home. So,
oh my goodness, good Liz.
Yeah, and if you're not acquainted with it, so Memorial Stadium is in downtown Lincoln, on the west edge of city campus, and you walk a block and you go over a pedestrian bridge, and if you turn to the left, it's Husker baseball, Hawks Field, Haymarket Park. If you go to the right, it's Husker softball. The facilities are essentially adjacent. And the football spring games at 11, the baseball and the softball games Saturday are at 2. So, there's going to be a massive flow from Memorial Stadium to baseball and softball over this bridge right after the spring game. It's going to look like an exodus. It's going to be fun to see. It's going to be a little tough to navigate. I'm still trying to figure out how exactly I'm going to get from the football stadium where I'm doing PA to the softball park, but it'll get done, and we'll have a full broadcast.
You're doing PA, so you're doing a double dip yourself.
Yes, that's exactly right. The football. I'm the football public address for the spring, or for Husker football generally, and so of course that includes the spring game. I'm just happy they're at home. Last year, I had to skip out on the series at Washington, which was a disappointment because, of course, Washington's always good. Seattle's a wonderful place to go. The Mariners were at home. I could have gotten a Mariners game while I was out there, but alas, I had to stay back for the spring game. So happy that they're at home. I'm not going to miss any games this weekend.
All right, good.
And then a series of this magnitude.
Yeah, I was going to. You have enough buffer zone? You have enough buffer zone time-wise to get to softball? I mean, is that going to be tight?
I've been told the football is only going to take about 2 hours, and it's an 11 a.m. Central kick, and softball begins at 2 Central. So as long as I don't run into too much traffic, pedestrian or otherwise, going over the bridge, I should be okay.
All right, so we got some drama on the booth. I'm going to be watching that, listening very closely
Yeah.
to see if you make it for pregame. Oh,
Yeah.
there. Let's get into this. You mentioned it. So you've already answered one of my questions I was going to ask. Where does this rank from a series standpoint in the history of Nebraska when you consider UCLA and the brand, the top 10 matchup, Big Ten championship ramifications, top 8 national seed ramifications, perhaps national player of the year ramifications here? What is the buzz like? What is it going to be like? Is record attendance expected? Like, what's the buzz like for this series? Because you warned me about this when we hung out in Clearwater, that this was going to be one of the craziest weekends with everything that was going on. We didn't even know about basketball at the time. But even without that, you said this was going to be massive. How is it this week so far in Lincoln with the talk on this series?
Well, there's talk. Unfortunately, the men, this is first world problems that Nebraska men's basketball has been as successful as it's been. And that has taken a lot of the oxygen out of the room, and deservedly so. Look, Nebraska men's hoops, with this being an unprecedented run, with all the excitement that you saw in Oklahoma City and all the Nebraska fans that made the trip down there, the fact that Houston is not quite as travelable, but it's doable. And then the fact that they're playing Iowa, so you're playing your rival in your farthest advancement into the NCAA tournament. There's a lot going on here. But with that said, I think people understand that UCLA Nebraska is a big deal. UCLA is a name brand program in softball, and even the casual sports fan understands that UCLA is in Oklahoma City basically every year. And Nebraska has gotten off to such a good start, and they're in the mix in the RPI to be a top 8 national seed. There's excitement, to be sure. It's just it's tough for it to manifest because of all the interest and all the attention that the men's basketball team's getting. If men's basketball hadn't made as deep a run in the NCAA tournament, there would be buzz the likes of which I've never seen. But as far as the crowds are concerned, I would be shocked if we don't set records, if they're not nearly 3,000, if not over 3,000 for all 3 days. It matters here what the weather's going to be like. The weather's going to be good. It's going to be warm enough. It's not going to be as cold as maybe I might have hoped in late March to try and make it tougher on UCLA. So the building's going to be full. I think people are going to be excited. I just think that everybody is so laser focused on Thursday night with Nebraska and Iowa basketball, men's basketball, that the Nebraska UCLA thing has not had a chance to build.
All right, let's talk some X's and O's in this matchup. And I think the matchup when people are going to look forward to seeing in this series throughout the weekend is UCLA's offense, led by Megan Grant, led by Jordan Woolery, and this Bruins offensive attack that's setting records, program records, which is saying something considering the history of that program. Sure. Going against Nebraska's pitching staff. And I say pitching staff, Nate, because I think one of the developments this season, we saw this in Clearwater, it's not just Jordy Fromm anymore that's pitching by herself. Yes, she leads the team in innings. She is still the ace of this team. But you've got Alexis Jensen, who has been fantastic for them. You've got just talk about this staff that has an ERA under 2. And what has worked for Nebraska in helping Jordy to the point where Jordy's been used more as a high-leverage closer. In fact, she tied Rhonda Ravel's record for most saves in a single season. So you haven't had to use her as much as you did last year because of pitchers like Jensen.
Well, yeah, it has definitely taken a lot of load off of Jordy's shoulders, which is useful and will be useful. I mean, it's not like she ran out of gas at the end of last year. The game 3 in the Supers against Tennessee, she lost 1-0, and against that lineup, 1 run is nothing. It is not anything to be troubled by. But at the same time, it gives the opposing offense another look, another person to deal with Alexis Jensen. She's a power pitcher. She attacks hitters really well. Very good changeup. When that changeup is on, she can really be deadly. And I think Nebraska had fairly high expectations for Jensen coming in. She's a freshman. She's from Gretna, which is an Omaha suburb. Was the state player of the year coming in. So she came in with the accolades. I think she has at least met, if not exceeded, the expectations coming in for what this coaching staff had for her. My real pleasant surprise is what Nebraska has gotten out of Hannah Kamensen and beginning last weekend, Kylie McGee. Hannah is a pitcher that isn't a big power pitcher, doesn't strike a lot of people out, but when she's on, she gets a lot of ground balls. She gets a lot of balls in play. She keeps the defense involved and doesn't throw quite as hard as the other two. Another left-hander, so you can flip lefty righty twice, whereas Kylie McGee is more of that power archetype pitcher where she's trying to get a lot of strikeouts, where she's throwing the rise ball, working up in the zone. So the bottom line is you've got 4 different looks that you can run out there. And 1, that keeps the opponent guessing. And 2, even when they lock in on one of yours, you can just simply hand the ball off. And then 3, that takes a lot of pressure off each individual pitcher, whether it's Jordy Fromm, whether it's Jensen, whether it's Kamensen, whether it's McGee, to where they know, okay, I just need to do my best. The weight of the world is not on my shoulders here. And we're not going to fall apart even if I have a rough outing. So they have the freedom to go out there and pitch pretty freely and fairly well. So I think that all adds up. And this is really the first time I can remember Nebraska being more than 2 pitchers deep, where you could start any of 3 pitchers and feel pretty good about your chances of winning a conference game. And the way McGee has thrown the last couple of weeks, it might be 4 deep. And that's really exciting because, you like your chances of finding somebody out of 4 pitchers to get the other lineup out. The one thing I'll say about Jensen is it's been a battle. When people have hit her, she's been prone to giving up the home run ball. And that's worrisome against this UCLA team. So she's going to have to be really careful, especially in pitchers' counts of throwing pitchers' strikes. She's gotten better about it as the year has gone on. But if you look back on her outing against Texas, or you look on her first weekend or two, she was prone to giving up the home run ball. And she has managed that better, but it has also kind of come back. We saw that against Michigan. So against a team like UCLA, where the lineup is just stacked and everybody can go yards seemingly, it's going to be an important deal for her to throw pitchers strikes and not just strikes, because she doesn't walk people, but she needs to throw pitchers strikes. She needs to throw on the edges more than straight down the middle. That'll be a real key to her success. And Nebraska getting a full game out of her, or most of the game out of her, again, taking weight off of Jordy.
What's your guess on how Jordy will be used in the circle this weekend? Will she be dependent to start a majority of this series? Is she going to be used in high leverage and perhaps as part of multiple arms to get this talented, deep UCLA lineup out? How do you expect Jordy to be seen used here in the circle this weekend? Because obviously there's some interesting options there for Coach Ravel and the staff.
Certainly. If I had to guess, it would be start Friday night. I would bet that Jensen starts Saturday, but depending on how many pitches she has to use or whatever is available for Saturday. And then Sunday, I would anticipate her pitching at some point, but I don't know, because this Nebraska staff has really tried to limit how much they're using Jordy, and especially how much they're starting her. I think it's important Friday night to trot out there with your best and to just set 98 out there and go, okay, this is our best. And you're also very likely to see Taylor Tinsley on the other side Friday night. So go best on best and try to win a pitcher's duel. But it's been an interesting shift this year. And I talked about how this is the first time it's felt like Nebraska is more than too deep pitching wise. The Husker coaching staff I think they're pretty excited about the idea that they can switch pitchers in the middle of a game, that they can go to two or three different arms, because they feel like they get that advantage of having a pitcher face the lineup only twice as opposed to three times. And there are all sorts of stats about, the average batting average or slugging or OPS or whatever of first time through the order versus second time through the order versus third time through the order. And the third time through the order is usually pretty tough. So if you never have to have a third time through the order, that's a good thing. I don't know that there will be much reluctance to limit, or I don't think they'll try to limit her innings, but I do think that they'll want to engage some of the others, especially Jensen, and then maybe McGee or Kamenzind, but with Jordy always at the ready to come into the game if the situation allows.
UCLA has shown, especially in starts that in games that Tinsley doesn't start, to win shootouts. They've put up numbers. They've won football scores. Heck, we just saw one on Monday night at Rutgers, for example, which is, hey, can Nebraska win a shootout with UCLA, or do they need to avoid that? Do they need to win a certain style against UCLA, or do they have enough bats to keep up with the UCLA offense if it gets to that point?
I feel pretty good about Nebraska's ability to win a shootout against them. I mean, if you're giving up 10 runs to UCLA, you're in a lot of trouble. But if I think Nebraska can win 8-6 if they need to, or 10-8. Much beyond that, it's tough. But I feel good about the other parts in this lineup. I mean, Jordy has hit all year long. Ava Kuzak got off to kind of a slow start, but she has come around. Hannah Core is starting to hit now that she has gotten, half a season of consistent at bats. Samantha Bland's a weapon in this lineup. So I think there are enough bats for Nebraska to keep pace. I mean, unless UCLA just flips it into hyperdrive. UCLA hitting at 105% is going to beat Nebraska hitting at 105%. But, if you have games that you have to win 9-7, 8-6, 10-8, I think Nebraska's got enough in the tank to hang with them.
How does your park play? Is it a hitter's park, pitcher's park? How does it play? And is it dependent on the conditions?
Very dependent on the conditions and especially the wind. I've not looked yet at what the wind's supposed to do, but that would be the big thing. Wind and warmth. It's going to be warm but not hot. If you're talking about mid to late May and it's 85 and you got a south wind with you, then it can play pretty small. I think it's going to be a fairly balanced field in that respect this weekend. I don't know that the wind is going to be howling in to where it'll play huge, but I don't think it'll be a launching pad either.
Who's a player or two for Nebraska that nobody's not going to talk about? Everybody's going to talk about the star players. But who's a player or two do you think could be the key in this series that makes the difference in the series, whether it be offensively or pitching?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't want to not call her a star, but because she missed a week of play, Jessie Farrell maybe is a little farther off people's radars than she should be. But she's got the capability to hit for power. I think she's also very important in controlling UCLA's running game and also helping the Nebraska pitching staff through this game, through this weekend. And if Farrell hits at a high level, then you're talking about a lineup that's clicking on all cylinders. And then I think Nebraska has an advantage in the circle. And so I think Nebraska, if Farrell hits the way that we've seen her hit this year, I think that's the big determinant that lets Nebraska keep up offensively with UCLA, and then the pitching takes care of business.
The offense stands out for UCLA. What else stands out as you study up UCLA here that you're intrigued to see how they match up with Nebraska and that you think could be keys this weekend?
Well, I'm just, the offense it almost just astonishes you. It really shocks your system as to what they're able to do. I'm interested in when Taylor Tinsley isn't pitching. I think that's a real X factor for them and an opportunity for Nebraska, to be perfectly honest. I mean, their pitching depth, I think, is a real question. And if they show up and they hold this Nebraska lineup in check, the Huskers are in trouble. But if their pitching depth, if everybody after Tinsley struggles, then I think Nebraska's got a real opportunity to win this series because, if you assume, and I think it's a safe assumption that Friday night is going to be Tinsley versus Fromm, then the winning or losing of the series may well come down to, okay, what do you do? How do you win a game when Tinsley or Fromm does not start? And I think, as we've laid out, Nebraska has an advantage.
The Friday night game's a late night start. Is this the latest you can recall starting? And obviously, television is a big factor in this. The game will be nationally televised on FS1. But it struck me like, whoa, that's a late start that I can remember. But I'll defer to you. Is this a later than normal for a Nebraska softball game to kind of discuss that and the impact of that of a late Friday night game, because you got to then have a kind of a quick turnaround then on Saturday, which is so that makes really even more pressure on game one to some extent.
Certainly, on a couple of fronts. And yeah, it is. So a normal home game at Bowlin Stadium on Friday night is a 5:30 Central Time first pitch. I believe one of the Michigan games when they were number one in the country about 10 years ago was an 8:00 start, but maybe I'm imagining that. But the bottom line is this is a late start for television. I'm wondering if it will cool off a little bit, which could be of some impact toward UCLA. It's going to be warm, relatively speaking, for late March in Nebraska, but the fact that it cools off, the fact that they've got to deal with a little slicker bowl, a little heavier air, that may be a factor. That may be of some help. And then just the idea that you play that game, gets over 10:30 at night, and then you're back at it at 2:00 on Saturday. So if either UCLA hits Fromm or Nebraska hits Tinsley to where the second pitcher has to come on, what are you able to do against that second pitcher to where do you get UCLA or Nebraska thinking twice about who they're going to start on Saturday? If Fromm and Tinsley throw complete games, then I don't know that it's that big a factor. But if you can get into their bullpen Friday night and get a look at somebody, it could really pay some dividends for you. If you're getting into their bullpen, you've got a good chance of winning anyway. But it can also put some notes in your head about a pitcher that you see either Saturday or Sunday.
Let's talk Big Ten. This is a fascinating year in the Big Ten. I believe right now there's 4 teams in the mix to host from the Big Ten, which I don't think that's a sentence that's ever been used in softball, at least, right? Nebraska inside the top 8. Really, the metrics, I mean, they're top 4, top 5 right now, honestly. National seed is very fair. That's where I have them. UCLA's kind of on the bubble as far as top 8 national seed hosting-wise. You got Oregon, which has kind of been up and down. They're sort of in that mix to host top 16. Washington's playing some great softball there as well. And then there seems to be kind of question marks after that. Michigan, who you saw, can hit, but has questions pitching-wise. Purdue just picked up their first win over a team in the top 75 RPI this weekend against Oregon, so they have some resume questions. Indiana seems to be down, giving up 24 runs to Oregon in a non. By the way, what's with the conference teams playing all these non-conference games? I looked it over. I'm like, oh, Indiana, Oregon in a conference game. Then I was like, no, that's a non-conference game. I'm like, oh, geez.
Yeah, no.
What do you make?
18-team league, weird stuff happens.
Great term, exactly. What do you make of this Big Ten in 2026?
Well, I'm going to say overall the talent level's a little down, especially the pitching depth. I think is a concern. And again, you look at UCLA; they lose Caitlin Terry, who is an excellent second pitcher, and under normal circumstances, she would be at UCLA and she'd be pitching great. But I just think the pitching depth in this league has taken a big step back. And as a result, the overall depth in the league has taken a step back. You talked about Nebraska, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. And those four teams, all four of those could possibly host. Washington's got to really hustle. But I thought Washington was underrated coming into this year, to be honest. And though their year has been a little up and down, I think they've performed a little better than even their ranking now would suggest. I've got some questions about Oregon. I mean, the 24-run game, like you said, just grabs your attention, and not the 24-12 game against Indiana. Yeah, they scored 24. They gave up 12. I mean, other than Lindsey Grine, what are they getting pitching wise? And anymore in college softball, and we've seen this evolution, you need staffs. You need more than one pitcher. And right now, I don't know that Oregon has that. And so I could see Washington and Oregon being 2 seeds in regionals somewhere. This series, the winner of this series has the inside track on the Big Ten, inside track on hosting regionals and super regionals. The loser of this series, I think the best you can hope for is hosting regionals, because I just don't know that there's enough juice in the league. There's not that great, second tier. Northwestern's down. They lost a lot from graduation, and because of the academic situation there, they have to be kind of cyclical with how they build their program, and this is the down part of the cycle. Michigan's down, Indiana's down, Ohio State's really fallen off from last year. So I would say, as a whole, unfortunately, the league has really taken a step back, and I think it starts in the circle. And so we'll not see, I think last year it was 7 teams in regionals. That's not going to happen. They're going to be doing well, I think, to get 5 or 6.
100% agree with you. I think you nailed it. It was funny that you bring it up, because on Monday I was in a group chat with some of the staff, and we were like, what is going on in the Big Ten with these scores? Like, every weekend, like Illinois, Iowa played a shootout, and all that. And I think you nailed it. And listen, it's not just the Big Ten. The sport as a whole, I believe I saw the stat where their average runs per game is up a full run from last year, when it shattered a lot of numbers. Walks are up. There's a lot of conversation about the strike zone, the youth pitching. We don't have time to get into all of that. But it seems like the Big Ten in particular has been the most impact. And you just nailed it. The young pitching has certainly hurt them a little bit. And I don't think the league is as deep as it was a year ago. And I agree with you. I think it's a 5 to 6 big league. And that it'll be interesting if the bottom of the league or middle of the pack hurts the top teams from a resume standpoint, whereas teams in other leagues benefit from the depth that they might have, i.e. the SEC, of course, but even the Big 12 has 7 teams, for example, in the top 50 RPI. ACC's got 8. Those are conferences ahead of the Big 10 in the RPI. That's going to be very interesting to follow. That could determine some of the seeding here.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And you look at how Nebraska's scheduled in the non-conference, the top non-conference RPI. I mean, that was why, because, I don't know what Rhonda Revell's sort of internal projections were with the league, but, unfortunately, it's the thing that we battle in the Big Ten that the SEC doesn't really deal with, that the ACC doesn't deal with. And some of it's self-inflicted. I mean, you look at some of these programs that don't invest in their facilities, that don't invest in their coaching staffs that play very, very lackadaisical non-conference schedules, and you're going to stay in the mud. And unfortunately, there's never been a great push at the bottom part of this league to try and improve themselves. I think there are programs in this league that have said, you know what, we're in the North. It's going to be an uphill climb. Also, a handicap a lot of Big Ten schools have, they have 1 million programs. I mean, Nebraska has 24 varsity sports, and we're small. And you think of some of these SEC programs have 18, sports. Those are, have fewer mouths to feed out of a essentially equal pot of money. And so it's really a question of, what do these bottom half Big Ten schools want to invest in this sport? And what does the conference want to invest in this sport? We were talking about this off air. Only one of these games in the series, 2 top 10 teams, 2 name brand schools, 2 schools that you could see coming, Women's College World Series team in UCLA, super regional team in Nebraska, brought back enough talent both ways. In Nebraska's case, they brought back basically everybody. And only one game is on national television. And some of that is your TV partners, but the Big Ten owns the Big Ten network. How do you not camp out at Bowlin Stadium? That's a real miss and a real failure, a real own goal, because it would be obvious just to camp out at Bowlin Stadium. But this conference and many schools in it have never cared enough about softball to be competitive, and it's going to hurt us this year. There's no question.
And it's unfortunate, because I think the Big Ten has done a fantastic job promoting volleyball, for example.
Yep.
And you know this obviously from being in Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska is on Fox a lot. Big Fox, not FS1 only, not just Big Ten Network. They've obviously promoted the Big Ten Network Friday night volleyball and Saturday night, sometimes things like that. But I saw Nebraska play Wisconsin on Big Fox. I saw Nebraska play Penn State, I believe, was on a Big Fox, and it drew great numbers. And I don't know why we can't put Nebraska UCLA, which we all knew when the schedule came out. That's a marquee series. You don't have to be a diehard, softball to know that. Why not put that on regular Fox? On a Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, and draw some casual fans. I really think it would have done good numbers for them. You have other partners with the Big Ten, the NBC or Peacock. Sure. Like, there's just so many options, and they've done a good job with basketball and football being on basically basketball's on every night for the league. Right. I feel there's ways to do that with sports like softball, not just softball, baseball too, I'm sure. But I don't cover baseball, so I don't know the ins and outs on the league. But just from a softball, there's so many great talents here with a Jordy Fromm, Alexis DeBoer of Washington. I mean, we could go on and on. Megan Grant, Jordan Willity. This is a star-studded series.
Yeah, it's frustrating. But you mentioned volleyball got on Big Fox. Volleyball got on Fox Sport on FS1. And that's true. Volleyball for a long, long time was on BTN every night, or every conference game, or virtually every conference game. And that, you can't control what Fox is going to do. And it's wonderful that they picked up the Friday night game. But you as a conference network can be a hell of a lot smarter about things than go, Nebraska, UCLA, 2 top 10 teams, 2 teams that have very legitimate expectations of going to the Women's College World Series this year. We're good. We don't need to show any of those. We'll let FS1 take the Friday night game, then we'll be good. Asinine. Utterly asinine. Like we said, you and I could have sat there on New Year's Day and said, this is going to be a huge series. And you need to roll out the red carpet for it as a conference. And they, there's the conference network not doing anything with it. It's very frustrating. And it's part of the hill that a school that has ambition in softball, like Nebraska, and like our Western brethren, Washington, Oregon, UCLA. It's part of the hill we have to climb. And there are other mainline Big Ten schools like that too. Michigan cares about softball. Northwestern cares about softball, but we need more. And the push needs to be hard.
They should hire the two of us. We can
we
could make the Big Ten schedule for them. Let's get that
Absolutely.
done. Because listen, I know people don't like the SEC and all that. One thing they do smartly, you've noticed, they backload the schedule. Like Oklahoma, Texas. Why? For television. They understand, hey, basketball's going to occupy the month of March, and February. Let's put our marquee series in April after basketball season and showcase our marquee series that way. I think that's something the Big Ten could do as well moving forward. We'll see. But hey, what do we know? We're just TV execs. They didn't ask us, unfortunately. There. The good news is you'll be on the air on the radio all 3 games this weekend for free, so people tune in to Nate Rohr. I'll let you go with 2 quick questions here. You've seen a Nebraska team make it to the World Series. You know what it looks like. Does this team have that, or is there still a question in your mind that has to be answered before you say yes?
I think they do. They've hit great pitching. I think they've had pitching depth manifest itself. They've had offensive depth manifest itself. They've beaten good teams. My one worry, and this goes back to the weakness of the Big Ten Conference, is it's going to be a while before Nebraska sees an elite level pitcher after this weekend. I mean, this weekend, and then, of course, in a couple of weeks, Matty Agroff with Omaha. The Huskers still have a non-conference game against them. But the pitching Nebraska is going to see in the next month is not going to be very good. And so they're not going to be where they need to be offensively, or I at least worry that they might not be. But that would be maybe the one question that I need answered. How are they going to stay sharp offensively to where if you get a good 2 seed in a regional in Lincoln, you're still able to beat them. But that's about it with this bunch. Otherwise, I think they're complete. I think they're deep, and barring any brutal injuries, they have what it takes to make it to the Women's College World Series.
Matty Agroff, I feel like you're going to be saying her like a million times this year between now and regionals. Yeah. I have a feeling.
And we just as well write her down. She and the Mavs are coming to regionals. Yeah. Nebraska has to go up to Connie Clausen Field, which is an excellent facility, incidentally. The Huskers are going up there in a couple of weeks. We'll see our share of her, no doubt.
I have a feeling. All right, I'll let you go on this. Fill in the blank. Nebraska wins this series if blank. UCLA wins this series this weekend if blank.
Okay. I'll start with the bad news for me. I mean, of course, I'm sure you have plenty of UCLA listeners. UCLA wins this series if Jensen is unable to keep them in the ballpark. If Alexis Jensen, and to a lesser extent the rest of the staff, if Nebraska can't keep them in the ballpark, if they're in trouble. Because if it turns into home run derby, UCLA's got the horses. Nebraska wins this series if they're able to keep them in the ballpark. There you go. It's just the side of the coin. If Nebraska keeps UCLA in the ballpark, doesn't give up a bunch of home runs, I think they win the series. If UCLA comes out and is hitting 5, 6, 7 home runs like they have this year, they win the series.
I'll add to that. If you're going to give up a home run, let it be a solo shot.
It better be. Now, that's the one good part, even with Jensen, when she has given up home runs, she walks virtually nobody. Over 100 strikeouts and I think 10 walks on the year. So they're solo shots, but those do add up eventually. But yeah, if Nebraska can keep them in the park, I like their chances.
That's Nate Rohr, radio voice of Nebraska. You'll hear him all weekend. Tell the audience where they can find you and listen to you this weekend.
Sure thing. So Huskers.com and the official Nebraska Athletics app is where our broadcast is located. My Twitter handle, we always take tweets in the booth, and So even if you're a neutral fan just looking for some good softball, at Rohr the Crowd, ROHR the Crowd, we take tweets in the booth. We'll read them on the air, and it's also a good way to track us down if you're looking for where to listen to us.
Hey, man, enjoy it. It's going to be a wild weekend. I know you're looking forward to it. Enjoy it. Enjoy the PA and the spring game and then the softball. And good luck, man. Thanks for always coming on with us.
Hey, always happy to do it. Always appreciate you guys having me on, and should be a heck of a weekend.